Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here for our first ever Fireside Chat, episode 1. We have SunnyTzu with us here today, who's going to be discussing a lot of the cool stuff that they've been doing, just getting involved in the community, and how we all can also, I guess, get involved if that's something that we're called to do. So, hello, Mr. SunnyTzu.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day just to sit by the fire here and look up at the. Well, there are some stars up there, aren't they? Not as pretty
Yeah, a couple.
as our world stars, but they're cute enough. So yeah. All right. So first up, do you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
I don't know. I've just turned 31. I live in a very rural part of Canada, and I consider myself to be a human rights and labor activist.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's a pretty good intro. So, out of curiosity, were you always thinking that you were going to get involved in that kind of stuff, or did you have a different life path that you were, I guess, forging out?
Not quite this exact thing, but I know I always enjoyed organizing, getting people involved in things they're passionate about, and finding myself in a leadership role where I could, direct people into doing what they're most passionate about.
Beautiful. Cool. So, I guess, does that mean that you are currently involved in politics and stuff?
Yes, I am very heavily involved in politics. I consider myself a democratic socialist, and I hold a couple different positions in the Canadian Party known as the New Democratic Party, which kind of falls under that peer review. I've run in 2 federal elections and 1 provincial, and I'm currently running unsuccessfully, and I'm currently running in my local municipal elections. And that's I've really gotten a lot of knowledge running campaigns and being in them, so it's been a lot of fun.
That takes a lot of courage to do, so well done. How did you start getting involved in these things?
Um, it's coming into a space, and especially when I moved from a big city, and I moved back here to where my family's from, out in the countryside, and I realized that there's not a lot going on for leftist politics and for labor and humanitarian rights. It's like as the topic that I'm the most passionate about, and I decided that if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. Even if I do it poorly, at least it's getting done. Because that's the thing, a lot of the time people are too afraid to step up and stand out, because they're worried about not doing a good enough job at of that, what they've set in their head of what it should look like and what it should be. But that's just leaving so much open, and that just ends up at the end of the day nobody does it.
Dang right. I honestly agree with that in full, and that's pretty commendable because it is really intimidating to want to step into new spaces, especially when you have no experience in it. So that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Let's see here. I do have a few questions just in general. So let's see. Facing a lot of the youth today, what problems do you see them facing today that we didn't really have to, involving, I guess, the state of the world?
Something that's really alarming to me is that a lot of young men, from as soon as they're able to get on the internet to probably late 20s, there is a pipeline where it's taking them to the far rights. Like you have the Aiden Ross, you have the whatever the guy who got arrested in Romania was. These young men, they're looking for male role models, and these are the guys who come up, these who teach them to hate women, who teach them to hate themselves, anyone who's different from them, all in the name of making themselves feel better. It is a real issue right now because there are a lack of just not just male role models, but just role models for young people in the progressive space, where we're all just trying to get along and like finding mentors that unite us rather than divide us.
Very true. You know, I'd never really seen that whole ideology at all before the internet existed. So it was really surprising to me to find so many individuals who I guess are now indoctrinated in the ideology. Do you feel that that was like an organized plan thing to kind of draw men into that?
I mean, that's like saying it's a single concerted effort. I think would be grossly overestimating them. I think there's a lot of money and corporate interest and just old money backing a lot of these right-wing social conservative movements, where it's easier for them to do. It's harder to be inclusive. It's easier to divide people. It's easier to go up to someone and say, hey, everything that sucks about your life is because these other people are taken away from you. Because that's the way to divert from the real fact of where our problems are actually caused by and what's actually driving us apart.
I've seen that very much too, and I'm glad that you've mentioned that. Thank you very much. I have seen this quite often, actually, getting back into dating, surprisingly. After being very solo for a long time, I guess I didn't realize how much aggression there is in but I'm also wondering, do you think that there are things that do need to be addressed in that are deeper than just drawing males into that ideology, or is there some sort of healing that needs to take place, I guess, between us and society, and how might we pinpoint the core of those divisive things?
That's a really big question, and I have to say it is a lot of these ideologies which are that are coming back in a new and scarier form. I'll call it what it is, fascism. Is because of technology, which is further isolating us. You had COVID, where all of us were stuck in our homes and trapped in our own minds, and that's where these predatory right-wing pipelines are able to take people who feel lonely and they want to feel part of something. Technology is taking us away from being a part of our environment, being part of our community, being part of our world, because it is an easy way out for all the negative feelings that we're feeling.
Wow. You know, that is really profound. I see that as well, and I'm also, I guess, looking at it where you and I are connecting online right now, so I do see that there can be positives from it, but absolutely wanting to isolate, run away from our emotions, and just kind of diving into video games and just saying, oh, it's your fault that I feel this way, instead of saying, let's analyze the whole experience and who might need to heal on all sides of everything that's happened. I guess it is a really big question, sorry for that, but everything's so unique, right? There's so many different individual cases, so I think you did pretty good answering that. I guess when it comes to creating these positive changes today, how do you feel that you'd like to engage youth to want to get involved and to feel like they can create positive change in their community?
Giving young people a sense of community is really tough, but also the most rewarding thing you can do. I've been kind of the brainstorming ideas of my own. I think it's that the right-wing pipeline and right-wing interests, when it's either the capitalist class, it's oil and gas, and trying to divert us from environmental issues. They have money. They have a lot of money, and it is easy to do things with money. Like, it is easy to create massive structures, massive organizations, like the lobbying groups and whatnot, to get the political change that you want on the right wing. But leftists, we're poor. All of us are poor. We're at the bottom of society, seeing what this is happening around us, of everyone getting taken advantage of, feudalism 2.0, and we're all just trying to make ends meet. It is so overwhelmingly difficult to go out and organize in your community when you're worried about what you're gonna eat next week, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you're working 2 jobs. You cannot go out and strike and demand for better payment. It is a really tough situation that we find ourselves in. But it's going out and finding that community for young people and just like-minded people. If you're going out and finding a Dungeons and Dragons group, or joining a local sports team, like, these are things that are really tough to do. And I'll say that from my own background, because I've done a little bit of, I've worked a little bit in marketing and whatnot. You just gotta gamify it. Honestly, I know that's a little bit out of left field from what we're talking about, but like, people love, especially young people, love the sense of accomplishment. It is so hard when it comes to community and organizing and building a movement. It is impossible to quantify. It is so hard to quantify. So if we're able to give things for young people that they can measure themselves against, and like to gamify, like when I think it was World of Warcraft that first kind of came up with the, or Xbox that kind of came up with the idea of achievements. And it's just like, we need those kind of things to be able to hold on to, because it's more than just these intangible societal bonds. Young people are really looking for something more that they can hold on to, because everywhere else in the world now, everything is much more tangible than it was like previous to the digital world, where it's much harder to go by just your community reputation and your community wins and knowing people around you, when we're overwhelmingly isolated from them.
Absolutely. I like that you brought up the connection in gaming. That's the whole heart of why I sought out with my friends to create Mana Up Gaming, because I realized it was something that we all, no matter what side you align with, we often can find in common. That and music and art, and I'm really big on the unifying thing. So I guess me personally, I'm trying to figure out where I align on the political side of things. So thank you so much for sharing your own experience there, Sunny. Just to get to know more about the political party that you're affiliated with. I know not everybody who follows me is from Canada. Do you guys have a 2-party system like in America, or how does that work up in Canada?
We're not a true multi-party system. We still do have 2 dominant parties, but we do have other parties. And for example, we have our number 1 third party right now is the Bloc Québécois, which is a political party that exclusively represents the interests of Quebec within Canada. What has been historically been the third party has been the New Democrats. And the New Democrats have a very old history with Canada in different forms. Like, there's always been a conservative party, there's always been a liberal party. Through, I would mention that the Liberal Party, big L, is not necessarily congruent with liberal ideology, small L. And that's something where people usually get tripped up. But the New Democrats, they've started in the labor movement, and with farmers, actually. The NDP usually used to be the Cooperative Commonwealth, Cooperative Commonwealth, I believe. I think there was another C in there for, but it was essentially started by farmers and labor activists as a way to get their voice on the Canadian political platform. and like their major things was of course creating co-ops, and co-ops are, just to kind of briefly go into them, they're, instead of a company run by a CEO, it's a company run by the employees, which is something that is very popular, and farmers kind of started the whole idea of co-ops because it's like, hey, these expensive farm machines are like millions of dollars and I'm just a small farmer, let's all pitch in together, we'll buy one machine and we'll share it between us. And the NDP historically kind of has won many like wins for Canada. Like Canadians are known for our public health system, and that was because it was very successful with Tommy Douglas in Saskatchewan. He was the leader of the Saskatchewan NDP. He brought public health care. It was so immensely popular, and the NDP were on track of forming the federal government for the first time, and seeing that the a watered down version of public health care that the NDP wanted was instead put out, and it kind of killed their support from there. But it is still a major win to have a public health care when we're living next to one of the most privatized states in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even more recently, like we've won dental care for people for there are a lot of people who just haven't seen the dentist in 10 years, and that's going to lead to major health issues down the line, and like that is part of taking care of your people and taking care of your workforce. There's something like 300,000 Canadians who cannot work because of mental health issues, and it's like we need to have mental health as part of our healthcare system, not just because it is the right thing to do, but because it is so good to take care of each other, because when we take care of each other, people want to go out and they want to work.
Absolutely, and people want to do less crime and do illegal things to make it by when they can't do it the regular way. So, absolutely, that's amazing, actually. Realizing, I know there was a book I had read about the Great Depression, actually, so I'm wondering if the NDP might have formed after that whole process where people had nothing. They had families that could barely afford food, they could barely afford to clothe their children, and, people never wanted to have to go through that level of suffering again. So, I'll have to look into that. But thank you so much for sharing. Very inspiring, just to let everybody know that just getting involved as a community, that things like public health care can be available like that. That is, wow. Okay. I definitely want to know more about the party, so if anybody else is interested in getting involved in these types of things, they know how to reach out. So, how would you get connected to the NDP?
So, of course, it's historically been a little bit more centralized party, and now we're working more on decentralizing, spreading out, having a little bit more regional autonomy, because that's something is grassroots is incredibly important to any movement, political or otherwise, and being able to get the everyday members are able to have their say and to be able to participate and do the work. So at the smallest level, there are riding associations, and like they cannot exist on the provincial or on the federal level. Getting involved with those is the best thing to start with. Those aren't always active. There are places where we've struggled to kind of get organizing going, so those aren't always active. So there are also nearby associations you can go for. There are sometimes regional groupings, and then you can also get involved, like you can choose to get involved specifically with the federal NDP or with the provincial NDP. A lot of the time most of the time they do overlap. In some cases it can be a little bit more complicated of a situation, and I could go off on an hour-long tangent about that. But just going out and meeting people and meeting people and getting involved in local community, reaching out to them over the website or over whatever digital means they use of communication. Look to see when their annual general meeting is and just show up for that. I mean, that's kind of how I got involved. I just showed up and they're like, you know what you're doing, you're going to be doing this, and like you kind of get voluntold when you want to be part of the movement. They're going to be able to help you and support you of what you want to do. But it's not just the NDP that I would recommend people get involved with. Like, get involved with your local community groups. Get involved with supporting your labor activists, your humanitarian activists. Like, there are so many people that you might be unaware of doing amazing work in your communities. and they always can use another hand. Even if you're new to organizing, new to volunteering, and incredibly shy, because that's the thing. A lot of us are just incredibly shy when we get involved. I always would. I hated even making a phone call, and I was terrified to make phone calls. And then now, like after 2 years, I'm much more comfortable just cold calling people, and it's something that it's not just I'm doing for my community around me by being involved in these initiatives. I'm doing something for myself. I'm learning how to be social. I'm learning how to meet new people. I'm getting out there, and I'm breaking free from that isolation that we're all finding ourselves in, just to kind of tie it back to the beginning of the conversation, because of just digital isolation and COVID, and that has been breaking us apart as communities.
That's really inspiring, and thank you very much for sharing all that. I definitely want to get more involved in my local community too, just to kind of know who's doing what and saying thank you. Or since COVID, I realized a lot of people are doing a lot of work and not getting a lot of recognition or gratitude for the work that they're often risking their lives when it comes to, well, I mean, COVID, everybody on the front line, we had no idea what we were even expecting, and they were just forced to go to work anyway, so. All right, my friend, thank you so much for stopping by our first ever, well, being our first interviewee for the Fireside Chat. Does the NDP have a website? You mentioned, what was that again? Just in case I do kind of want to check it out.
It would be the ndp.ca would be the federal one, and then for your provincial branch, you would essentially add the abbreviation of your province, ndp.ca. So for New Brunswick, ndp.ca. Prince Edward Island, PEI, ndp.ca. So it's pretty intuitive. Just to type that in your address bar or do a quick search.
Epic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sunny. I'm really grateful that you took the time to stop by here in the VR world. And I'm also really excited to find more ways to build connections and help us all get involved more with our local communities. Also, talking about history, that's another thing. Maybe a lot of us had no idea how we got to where we are, or how any country got to where they are. So getting to share these details, it helps us all understand that it took people's effort and hard work to give these things, and that it's available to all of us with the hard work and action. And what you also said about those with a lot of money having a lot of power, it is really hard after a full day of work to get on, like, wanting to volunteer for things like that. So thank you for all the work that you do for your community, because that is truly inspiring, and I wish you much happiness, health, and success on your adventures.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to close up the stream from here, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll catch you guys next time for another Fireside Chat.